This session is entitled Workforce 2.0, Integrating Social Media, Mobility, and Telework to Securely Modernize the Workplace. This is one of those issues that as I do research with the community and try to kind of understand what the needs are, there's always an underlying current of managing the new employees coming in, the younger generation and how they're doing things, and trying to eliminate some unnecessary costs and better using technologies. And when Yurka and I spoke a few months ago, he told me a really interesting story about what they're doing for the government of Canada, and I was really excited to have him join us here and share his work, and hopefully we can apply it to our government. A bit about Yurka. He is the CTO and CISO for the Office of the CTO, Information Technology Services Branch, Public Works and Government Services for the Government of Canada. As CTO, he is responsible for providing technical vision and innovation in identifying and evaluating new technologies that could be used within government. In his role, he also ensures that best practices in government processes are compliant with Treasury Board Secretariat direction for policies, standards, shared solutions, and technology principles. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Yurka.
Thanks, Parm.
Thank
you
you
very much. Okay, great. Great, thank you. Super. So I'm the last presentation before lunch, right? That could be tricky. Parm, thank you very much to yourself and Kelly and the GTRA family for organizing such a great collaboration event. We really enjoy it, and thank you for inviting us Canucks to come south and share and collaborate with you. It's a very, very much of a worthwhile experience for us. I'm going to I've got a lot of slides, and I will skip through the ones that are from background material, because you will have access to the deck if you want to learn more about some of the environments. But first of all, I think it's important, given who we are in Canada, that I spend just a few minutes to tell you who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to jump into some of our strategic drivers, which are no different really from most countries. I want to talk about our workplace renewal objectives as well, and the pillars of what those are, and as well as our roadmap that we are currently executing. So first and foremost, Public Works Government Services Canada is a legislated common and shared service department to the Government of Canada's departments and agencies. In other words, we serve all of the departments and agencies, which are approximately 200. So what you call an agency, to us, we are a department. That's the only ontology, I guess, that I can throw out there. We are very, very similar to GSA, with one exception, and the exception is the IT component. Okay, now that's the piece that I'm going to talk about. So one of our lines of business is acquisition. So our department is either the most hated or the most loved department in any given day, because they buy everything from pencils to fighter planes. And the delegated authority to buy that the departments have, I think, is limited to about $25,000. So it's very, very controlled, very centralized. The next major line of business is accounting, banking, compensation. So we have a single pay pension system. Banking functions and accounting, receiver general functions are all done by this particular branch. Real property, of course, the traditional real property, buildings, office space, and so on and so forth, but also bridges and certain critical infrastructures that the department leads. We have, in Canada, 2 official languages, so we have a very significant translation bureau, about 2,000 people. Their job is to do interactive translations when needed, and also translations of all the material, the official material that we produce. They deal in about 52 languages last time that we took account. So ITSB, or Information Technology Services Branch, which is this 5th line of business that I'm a part of, provides IMIT support to PWGSC in modernizing its initiatives, but also spearheads the implementation of shared services across the federal government. And I'll spend a little bit of time into that to explain exactly what that means. But we are the only department that has a legislated right to do so. No other agency or department can provide services to others, and so on and so forth. And also very strong privacy laws, which are some of our challenges being as shared services that I'll explain. Okay, so some of the strategic drivers, politically driven, I'm listing some of them here. They're not all of them, but of course, some very key ones. There was a digital economy strategy that was announced very recently. Public service renewal, which is one of the major reasons why I'm speaking here today. Federal Sustainability Development Strategy, it's all about our greening strategy, environmental improvement. The GOC ongoing expenditure review, no different than everybody. We're facing the same economic challenges, and therefore there's a significant amount of reviews going on into our spend. These strategies are political, and therefore they drive out, if you want, certain outcomes, and I'm listing only a couple of those outcomes. The digital economy strategy launched a Canadian Innovation Commercialization Program, something we did not have, and this is where the federal government set aside funds to acquire yet commercialized products that are invented by Canadian small medium enterprise, which has led to some pretty fascinating net new products that are available. Workplace 2.0, the reason why I'm speaking today, it's all about renewing the public service as far as real estate and technology. Digital office, another major outcome that came out of our greening, whereby our library and archives will stop receiving paper by the year 2017. So from between this time and 2017, all of the archives or material that needs to be provided needs to be digitally produced for them. Office of Greening, strategic reviews, and these items, if you want, lead to my office's, one of my core accountabilities, which is the innovation program. And in the innovation program, we take all of these feeders as well as ideas, and we come up with our roadmap and get that approved through governance as to what we should be working on, and I'll share that with you. The workplace renewal objective, the Prime Minister's statement here is to create a modern workplace that will attract, retain, and enable public servants to be responsive, innovative, and efficient in serving Canadians. And so that's really the vision statement about the workplace renewal. Some of the drivers that I can talk to you about, the most important one out of these: diverse workforce, attraction, retention, work-life balance, technology, environmental sustainability, are all items that we all deal with, of course. But in our demographics, 23% of our full-time equivalents are eligible to retire yesterday, okay? And that will grow to 44% by 2014. So by 2014, 44% of our existing FTEs are eligible to retirement, and they're all looking south, to Florida and whatever, to go play golf and so on and so forth. So you can expect a lot more of snowbirds coming your way. But you can imagine the structure of the way we run our programs and so on and so forth. With all of that corporate knowledge leaving, the status quo is simply not sustainable. So we have to change the way we manage our programs, the way we deliver our services, and thus Workplace 2.0 is a key element to actually position us to be able to do that before everybody leaves. Now, the 23% haven't left because they like working where they're working. That may change coming this summer, coming this fall, because they are eligible to a pension, and we do expect some announcements this summer. We just finished going through an election, and in Canada there are 5 political parties that present themselves at elections. For the longest time, our party in power was a minority government, and therefore minority government, it's like having a temporary pass to parliament, right? You basically only have certain amount of power that you can or directives, I guess, that you can impose. The latest election gave them a majority power, so therefore now they are fully empowered to impose directions and strategies going forward. So we're waiting patiently for this summer to see exactly what those directions will be. Well, we do expect major announcements that will come out to reduce the debt and so on and so forth. Okay, when we stood back about a year ago and started looking at this whole Workplace 2.0 and the dimension of what it meant and so on and so forth, we came up with 3 pillars. So we were able to put things into 3 buckets, if you want. that needed to be addressed. And the first one, the workplace, in other words, where we work, and the theme there is anywhere, anytime, any device. So we said, let's set that theme as our workplace. And what does it really mean? We have to take a hard look at the physical workplace itself. We have to look at the policies for teleworking, buildings themselves, sustainable, strategically located as well. And then the pieces that are heightened in black are the ones that the IT folks have to deliver on. In other words, computing device agnostic, so people can bring whatever device or use whatever device they feel like, is the theme, I guess the best way to put it. Have a serious blend of wireless and wired access and common access card. And I do thank the U.S. For that particular program and the PIV card and Judy Spencer's work specifically, because we are adopting that across the board to implement also our common access card. So currently, a Canadian federal employee has access, if you want, to a department, to a building. And if we go from building to building, which is as another tenant, we have to hand in our card, and we're treated as a stranger, right? And we get another access card and so on and so forth. So the workplace vision of the future is to get away from that, to be really physical infrastructure agnostic. And the best example is if you're in the suburbs of Washington and you're driving into work and it's 2016, 2017, you've got your green car and you got your GPS on and there's a storm, a snowstorm or whatever, then your feedback is, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, you're not going to make your meeting. I've looked at every other alternate route. You cannot get there. However, there is a facility 5 minutes from here. Do you want me to take you there? And the idea is that you can arrive to that particular facility, a federal government building, and your PDA or your iPad or your BlackBerry phone or whatever will give you directions to how to get there. You've got your PIV card to access the building, and you've got access to a facility that has what you need to do your work, whether it's telepresence capability, connectivity, of course, and so on and so forth. That's the vision of the future, and these new buildings that we are putting up and retrofitting are done according to that aspect. The wireless access for us, and I'll get a little bit into that, it's about creating a single enterprise wireless access. So in prior years, we would have had, for 200 departments, potentially 200 Wi-Fi implementations. This way here going forward, we're looking at one single enterprise Wi-Fi implementation for everybody. So a physical network, logical networks for departments to access. The second piece, the back office, and I'll delve down into that a little more. It's really all about our cloud capability, breaking down the barriers. So the theme here is break down barriers. Right? So today we operate many like systems behind departmental firewalls, and they don't share anything. Okay, the way forward is to get those back office systems out of there into the community cloud, retire the ones that are like, pick the best ones, and move forward. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we've already accomplished and where we're going forward. And the way we work, it's really connect, communicate, and collaborate. Right? So get out of the department of silos, work across the enterprise and the ecosystem to be able to collaborate with colleagues that you've known for 10 years, 15, 20 years, and so on and so forth, as people move around from agency to department. The theme that we did as well, and this is really more for background, for every one of these pillars, we looked at the issues, we identified the major issues that were in front of us that we needed to deal with, and then we did some research and looked at best practices and so on and so forth, and collected all that capability and collateral. And then we went forward and with a proposed approach. So in the workplace, it was the same thing. Presented this plan here, and then we were given green light to start moving forward. So from the technology, anytime, anywhere, any device, as you can see, we're showing a common access card, something that we don't enjoy today, something that you have, and you're in the process, of course, of implementing more broadly. Makes perfect sense. Here we're showing a device, a different device, a wireless point that I talked about. Access to buildings, the same thing, using a PIV-like card to access the buildings versus the independent stovepipe implementation that we have today. Wireless access points, and of course cellular activity. Now interesting, and on the cellular one, we just completed tendering our next government-wide tender for wireless. Typically, we used to tender those to accommodate everybody. In other words, every major supplier, right? So divvy up the market share accordingly, and everybody was happy, nobody complained. This time around, we decided that we would actually create far more competition, and therefore we went forward with a single winner take all. So you can imagine the noise in our parliament, like in your hill, there would be a lot of noise. We had a lot of that as well, but we stood firm and we said, no, we're going to try this, we're going to go forward with this one. So it was won by one supplier. In our case, it's called Rogers, which is not a traditional telco, not an ILEC, it's a CLEC. But the good news is a cell phone fully loaded plan is about $350 per month per user. A BlackBerry completely loaded, all the data plan, everything you can use and so on and so forth, $20 per month. Right? So the drop in cost was gigantic. So that's just one of the items that I wanted to put forward. Part of our Workplace 2.0 that it created significant savings and freedom, if you want, as far as mobility for our workplace, right? This next piece here, again, thank you very much, Judy Spencer. I know she's retired from GSA, but I used to call her the queen of ICAM. And, you know, being from England and so on and so forth, she liked that, to be called the queen of ICAM, I think. But in any event, the work that she did allowed us to pay really good attention to this area here, and we are moving towards, we do have one key. It's called MyKey in our case, for unified credential and authentication and access control. We have many credential containers, as you do as well, but one single identity, though, that we want to put on them. One integrated platform, multiple device suppliers, and we are moving towards something, first name, last name at gc.ca. So when you join the Canadian federal government, you will have one identity and one primary email address. And you will get, in our case, an alias email address that's branded to your department or agency. And as people move around, the alias changes, but their primary never changes. You can always find them, and then they maintain their community of colleagues that they've met and learned to work with collectively over the years. So that's another piece of our strategy that's going to be implemented. Does it mean that we're going to move to a single email? Maybe. I don't know yet. That's something we're going to find out this summer. Okay? But definitely one identity for all devices, and including parking, access to buildings, and turnstiles, and so on. Okay, the back office, again here, same issues as many. Lots of issues, of course. Lots of duplications. Lots of same-like systems. And again, it's the same aspect. We did significant research and best practices worldwide to see what others were doing, what we could leverage, and so on and so forth, to be able to come out with our proposed approach and plans, and dealing with systems, infrastructure, and policy and process, what needed to be changed to be able to get there. So the pillars here for this particular, the back office for IT, was about breaking down these barriers. So in this case, we thank Peter Mell for his work, and I have an interesting story about that because I was in Peter Mell's session yesterday when he was telling the audience that he was sitting on his back porch drinking a bad bottle of wine or something, and he was writing up the definition of cloud. Now, this is what cloud is, these are the characteristics, and so on and so forth, and he put that on paper, and then he said he got himself into a lot of trouble because coming from NIST, everybody said it's the standard, this is what it is, right? And when we got a copy of that, only a couple of weeks later, we were having a usual 5 CIO meeting. Usual 5 in our case are ourselves, the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. So Vivek, of course, was on the call, and we were there. I was presenting, and we were basically presenting where we were with cloud computing. and leveraging. And I remember when we presented, I made the comment thanking NIST's work for the definition of common language and the characteristics and so on, and say, well, are we adopting this? Why don't we adopt this across the usual 5, and we can actually forget about discussing it for a year before we get to probably something that would be tweaked only a little bit. And everybody agreed to, and that became the standard, and so far it was done. So when I went back and I addressed my governance team, my management board, we said, this is what we settled on. Any arguments? No arguments. Thank you very much. Let's move on. So then we were able to focus on actually implementation of cloud computing. And in Canada, there were no cloud providers that were compliant to the NIST definition, like no commercial cloud providers. And it was interesting because every time somebody would send me a letter, as I was making presentations saying exactly those words, I was always expecting a supplier to say that I was full of it and that they were a cloud provider. So whenever I'd get this letter, I'd say, show me that you are compliant to the NIST characteristics of cloud, and sure enough, we'll have a more interesting conversation. And the answer was always, we'll get back to you on that one. That's okay, fair enough. So what we then did is we focused on our community cloud, and because Public Works Government Services had this mandate for common and shared services, we were able to build a community cloud for the whole of government. And it was an interesting initiative, but in reality, because we had such a broad governance, in other words, all the CIOs are represented in our management board, they are the ones that tell us what to do. Like, we don't go off and decide, well, we're going to build this product, or we're going to do this way, and so on and so forth. Everything is done and presented as a community, and then they vote on it, and they tell us, this is the roadmap, this is what we vote on, and even actually make decisions on the pricing model and so on and so forth. So we were able to build this community cloud, and as a matter of fact, we do not put out any net new infrastructure anywhere that doesn't go into the community cloud. Right? So I'll show you a little diagram soon that's demonstrating how we're moving everything to this community cloud. The applications that are there, to the right, Secure Channel MPLS network, that was the first thing that we did. We knew we needed lots of bandwidth, we needed an MPLS network, and instead of buying a commercial network, we actually leased dark fiber. Okay? So we leased dark fiber for our national capital area where 60% of the processing occurred anyway. And then we interconnected our data centers in an MPLS way, and then we interconnected 240 buildings onto this network here. So we controlled the architecture, we controlled the endpoint. And of course, had more bandwidth than we knew what to do with. We could move all kinds of stuff around, right? So at a much, much lower cost. It doesn't mean that that's what we want to do long term, but we basically took the market to a different place, let's put it that way. And going forward, we're going to tender for that same service as long as it meets the price and service benchmark that we are putting out. On the other side, the community cloud, the one on top, CWA, that stands for Compensation Web App. So our compensation system, we have one and only one. It sits in the cloud. It's accessible by everybody. We don't print pay stubs or anything like that. Everything is direct deposited. That's mandatory, by the way. And for anybody that wants their pay stub, that would like to print it for whatever reason, has access to it. It's a secured file for them. They use MyKey, their PKI credential, to take a look at it. And I often joke with my colleagues, another application of this portfolio is pension calculator, and I say that's the hottest application that we have going in these days. So every day, depending on what happens or the mood of the people, they go in and they calculate their pensions, and should I go now, should I go in 5 weeks or something like that. So really hot application, pension calculator. But 23% of our population does that on a regular basis. TRB, Translation Bureau, is again an enterprise app that we put there. Acquisitions branch, buy and sell. So the buying aspect and the selling is in the cloud as well. Learning management, we eliminated all of the learning management systems that we had in the various departments, and we created one, right, through an SI contract, and we put it in the cloud. So everybody has access to it no matter where they are. And as they move from agencies and departments, their learning management system stays with them. It's available to them. The one in the bottom is our hybrid cloud implementation. We contracted out for a standard travel and expense claim system, one and only one. And this one is currently operated by Accenture/American Express, and it's in the process of being retendered as we speak. The two other arrows, my key is very much pretty well the same as your PIV credentials, right? So we use it for authentication, encryption, digital signature, and in the very near future to card validation. Access key is the digital credential that we've put in to allow citizens, business, First Nations to have access to cloud services that any programs or departments provide. So instead of accessing, if you want, or equivalent to like our revenue agency, they come to the cloud and then they serve themselves from there. And of course, we're trying to eliminate the necessity for a citizen to understand which department they have to go to get a service or get a grant or so on and so forth, right? To be very agnostic to the business. Okay. So this is one picture that depicts, if you want, our strategy of moving more and more infrastructure that is not highly used, sitting behind departmental firewalls into the community cloud. Right? So the community cloud, of course, the infrastructure is very virtual. Right? We maximize the use of everything that's in there. You can see pretty well everybody's brand. If there are any vendors in the room and you're in the cloud and your name is not there, I apologize. Just can't fit everything. But basically, if you take a look at the one for PwC Private Cloud, what you see are desktops. You see desktops, you see a firewall, it connects to an enterprise network, and then all of the applications and services are out of the community cloud. Some departments still have data centers, some still have servers, many. Don't get me wrong, we are nowhere near completion of this roadmap. This is definitely a 5 to 10 year migration to consolidate, but we were no different than most organizations. We had hundreds of thousands of servers. Utilization rate was below 8% at any given point in time. Everybody was building to capacity peak, right? And really the wake-up call was during the H1N1 dilemma that we had, where a lot of this infrastructure was sitting in our data centers. So our Department of Health, their infrastructure was just heated up to the max, and sitting next to it in the same data center was another department's infrastructure that was sleeping, right? And it would have been great if we could have just grabbed that capacity to allow that processing and then release it, thus, cloud characteristics. The way we work, this is really the next new wave of stuff. Again, studies, a lot about social media, a lot about Web 2.0 approaches. And the theme in this case is connect, collaborate, and communicate. Not just within the enterprise, which, by the way, is great when we achieve that, but also the ecosystem, right? So para-government, international research centers, and so on and so forth, to be able to actually have access to collateral and collaborate together. We did a number of things in 2009, and it started off WebEx, of course, we tendered for it, very hot product, very, very hot product. Right now that's being used by lots of people. But the GC Forums, which is the forums, the GC Connects and GCpedia, those were started in my lab with a very small server with a bunch of like-minded people. And because it was in the community cloud, the collaboration to evolve it just took off, just pirated if you want. And GCpedia is nothing more than a wiki, but it is an enterprise wiki. Anybody can go in and create a wiki, start a collaboration capability, reach out, find colleagues and so on and so forth, and evolve on it. We did do this on open source, I have to tell you. So those three programs are on open source. It is no longer in my lab, trust me, because we're into the tens of thousands of users on it. It is sitting in the community cloud in production with backups and all of the rules that go with that. Team collaboration. There was a huge demand from our constituents to have the ability to collaborate, but in a closed group. They really needed to know that you could create a working group, doesn't matter where they were, 10, 12, 15 people that were working either on policy or on a project, and they weren't really ready yet to publish the outcome of their product. So we built a team collaboration, a closed community collaboration capability for them. We did the same thing by launching an instant messaging within our domain, but available to all departments, right, and agencies. You cannot access this instant messaging from outside of our domain. It is purely inside, and that was to alleviate the massive amount of emails that were going on for things like, are you free for lunch? You know, and the free for lunch, once I explained it to my colleagues that free for lunch, we have to take a backup in a silo, and then we have to take a backup of the tape, and then we put that in a truck, and we send it to Library and Archives. I think they understood the message. So instant messaging allowed us to just completely drop the ability there to drop, if you want, email. Telepresence, 4,000 endpoints in the Government of Canada. They were all very independent by agency or department. We are finalizing, we're not done, we're finalizing an enterprise bridge to interconnect all those IP devices, take them off of ISDN because we have the bandwidth to accommodate them, and put the ability to actually book these rooms for collaborative meetings, rich collaborative meetings, of course. GETS 2.0 is our directory, our social media directory, LinkedIn-like or Facebook-like that we launched. GC Docs, the ability to do records and document management in the community cloud. Okay, so again, controlled by the editor, accessed by whoever from a control perspective. But again, it's another application where we have an enterprise license that was deployed behind departmental firewalls over and over again. And the only way that someone could share a document was to pull it out of their RDIMS warehouse, attach it to an email, and send it across to another agency. And we said, that's pretty silly, right? Let's put it in a big warehouse in a container, put some security around it, and so on and so forth. So we are implementing that. Search, unified communications, and of course our unified cloud. The next thing that we did to move to this at gc.ca, because we had an enterprise directory, we then made it self-serve so people could create their single username and password. So one time they go in, it'll hit their existing directory, and then you decide first name dot last name at gc.ca. If that's not available, the system then says here are the options that you can have that would be compliant to our naming conventions. You pick one and that's it, you're done. And that's established once and for all. The next piece that we then rolled out was all about self-provisioning. So instead of sending a ticket or calling the help desk or saying I need this, I need that, we then started putting up a lot of these applications and say self-serve. If you want them, they're there. They're enterprise applications. We are appropriated to provide you those applications. So if you need GETS 2.0, you need closed collab, web conferencing, all this, so on and so forth, check mark. Next thing you do, you're enrolled and you can start using them. So that's the next piece that we're expanding on this, as a matter of fact. Paybacks, just conscious of time and growling in the stomachs of people that are hungry. Lots of paybacks, right, if we are able to do this, but we have political support, we have very broad departmental support to do it. It will not be done without pain and a lot of labor, but definitely the paybacks are huge once we are able to get through this journey, if you want. And then the following slides are really more for your own background as far as moving forward, and some examples of what the spaces are planned to look like, moving very much to pods. So we did some experiments in moving away from people being in self-enclosed cubicles and putting them into a larger pod, if you want. Fascinating things started happening. People started talking and didn't consume any more emails. In the past, they would be sending an email from one cubicle to the other, right? In this new pod, people were actually turning around and say, hey, Paul, I heard about, and I've been working on that and so on and so forth. So very interesting things that are happening, extremely positive from those proof of concepts and these pilots that we've had, to the point where we're now convinced, and we're just in the process of executing on that. And the last one is a progress. So on a quarterly basis, we provide a progress on how we're making in this project. That pretty well ends my presentation. I really want to thank you for giving me time to share this with you. And again, a lot of these are a result of the collaboration that we had with agencies in the U.S. Like MyKey, we would never have gotten there without your leadership. The cloud, same thing. The work that NIST has done, we would not have gotten there without Peter's and his team's great work. So thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you. If there are any questions, I'm not sure if I have any time. Parm?
Yeah,
Yes?
a couple minutes.
Okay. Any questions? Oh.
How about your budget? How's that going?
Well, our budget, Public Works Government Services Canada and ITSB, we are 100% cost recovery, which is probably the main driver that caused us to establish governance from the enterprise, so that people would tell us what they wanted us to work on and what they want us to charge as far as their price going forward, right? So our budget is set by our clients. We're a service organization, SLA based, and we're optional, right? So some of the services are mandated, but many are not, and basically we have to earn those services. So our budget has been doubling, tripling pretty well every year because of the value proposition. But it is an enterprise. Okay, yes?
What's the size of your user fee?
338,000. Yes? Mr. Gentleman? Security. For the cloud? Good.
For this kind of an open enterprise.
Yes. So the security, when we had our usual 5 bilat, we took it upon ourselves to take that element, which was privacy and security. The U.S. took the framework piece, the U.K. took the elasticity piece. My staff have been working on this now for the last year and a half, and we published the first version of domains and zones security for the cloud, so that we could ensure a high degree of privacy, and we're very, very legislated on privacy, right, and security, so that not just ourselves, but privacy commissioner, certification accreditation is done by 2 parties, not just ourselves. So we published our first architecture framework document by which we would build the cloud. We shared it with everybody. Everybody that I know of, we shared it, including the private sector, so on and so forth. We asked them to please drill a hole through it, punch a hole, tell us if we were off or something like that. And then we got all that feedback, and we published the next version. And that's now, it is our standard by which we deploy this technology and by which we host applications and so on. So very, very privacy conscious, very security conscious, but cloud enabled, elasticity and so on. Is it perfect? Do we have strangers walking around? Sure. We did move, however, though, to a single door to the internet. And so we have 2 providers now to the internet. We had 3,000 about a year ago, and we've shut down 2,998 of those internet access points. And there's 1 single door, an MSS, we call it the Managed Security Perimeter Defense, so that everything is cleansed. We pretty well throw back 98% of emails that come in as spam, 98% that comes in. It doesn't really come in, and I have not received a call, ever, from anybody saying, Jimmy sent me an email and I can't get it. Never. It's never happened. So you can just imagine the amount of bandwidth that would be riding on our networks if we wouldn't do that at that main door, right? So what does that do? The traffic then now that gets to the agency or the department's public access zone, it's very small, right? It's really the stuff that's clean, relatively clean. They implement their own, what we call compensating factors, depending on who they are and their security posture and so on and so forth, but huge difference. Okay. And by the way, that publication, if you're interested, is available. We can, I can send it to Parham, we can publish it, it's public domain. You know, we have a Access to Information Act that's very, very strong. So for $5, you can get anything in Canada. So we'd rather give it to you. It's less work because we don't have to figure out why is it you want it, right? So we'll send it to Parham and maybe publish it along with this deck if any are interested, because it's a good piece of work. I've asked Peter Mel to please take it to his team and see if there's anything that we missed.
Do we have any more questions?
Yes.
What's your perception of Canada's acceptance of use of PKI outside the government?
We don't have one. Outside of government, to come in to get our services, it was an issue of cost. So we were early adopters of putting out a product called ePass, which was PKI based. And therefore, anything and everything you wanted operated at a level of assurance 3, right? And that really did not make sense if all you wanted was forms or be able to fill out forms and so on. So we moved away from that, and we moved into access key, or to the same dimension that the U.S. has adopted, level of assurance 1 through 4, right? So access key is a level of assurance 2 for us right now. It's not PKI based. I would say 20% of our e-transactions are PKI based. So we've kept that for the ones that are payment of benefits and so on and so forth, right? Things where we really want to assure a higher level of security. But knowledge, if you want, common knowledge of PKI to the citizens, like they don't know. They don't know what that means. They do want to have a high level of assurance that their information is protected and so on and so forth.
So there hasn't been any type of backlash at all as to the use of the technology and where that technology could lead?
No, not at all. Not at all. Internally, it's very strong, of course. Internally, we're there, you know. Everybody has it, so let's move on and make better use of it. Especially digital signatures and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yes?
How do you provision the citizen? How do you know who they are to give them to you?
Through identity proofing. Right? So certain agencies have that mandate of identity proofing. Pretty well our revenue agency. No, electronically. They do it electronically, then there's an out-of-band process that goes on, but you have to be able to answer a series of things that only you would know, and from there the credential is then established, or the identity proofing, I should say, and then the out-of-band is sent for that final activation. We have not had breaches or issues in that aspect so far. You know, I just crossed my fingers here. I don't know if you see that, but fair enough. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and I hope to see you in December. Thank you.